In this week's episode, we talk about why men feel lost and disconnected, how to shift from doubt and hesitation to confident decision making, how the power of breathwork and cold water exposure can help to build practices of resilience, mental clarity, and inner strength, and lessons from military leadership, how discipline, self awareness, and emotional mastery can shape strong leaders. Welcome to Man Quest Define Meaning, where we help men navigate modern life, find their true purpose, and redefine manhood. I'm your host, James, and each week, inspiring guests share their journeys of overcoming fear, embracing vulnerability, and finding success. From experts to everyday heroes, get practical advice and powerful insights. Struggling with career, relationships, or personal growth? We've got you covered. Join us on Man Quest to Find Meaning. Now, let's dive in. Hello, Rob. Tell me about yourself.
Hi, James. So I grew up in the Midlands. I left school at the age of 16 and I joined the Royal Marines a few months after my leaving school after my exams. So I spent the next year in the Royal Marines and then I went on to another part of the military, so an elite organisation. I spent the following 15 years there. So I spent most of my adult life in the military, and I left at the age of 40. So my career naturally came to an end, and towards the end of my career, through my own personal journey, I got really deep into holistic healing, human performance, so I sort of moved into that area, into sort of the corporate world. I had a short stint working for a defense company building equipment for the military, but I soon found myself in a corporate company focusing on human performance and training. Just after that, and more recently, I've just launched my own business where I've really found my path and I'm helping people basically by some of the lessons I've learned along my career. That's where I am today.
So I remember the other day we had a discussion about, a quick discussion, and you mentioned that you went to school within probably 20 minutes of where I went to school in
Yeah,
Stafford.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So when I saw your bio and where you were from, it just really immediately took me back to back to school days. And it's interesting because I'd sort of forgotten and I'd left school at 16. I hadn't really gone back much. It immediately took me back to that place. So it was quite a nice thing to see.
A small world. Um, so with regards to the army, what kind of lessons did you learn that can really help to shape leaders and to really help us to drive towards purpose?
So throughout my career, I operated in, or I worked in the conventional military and also unconventional military. So I guess some of the lessons that I learned on reflection, and this also comes into my corporate world, is the best leaders I saw were the ones who'd basically done the work on themselves, either knowingly or unknowingly, and they had the lowest egos and they were the most authentic. So I reflect on this often in some of the training that I do with my coaching clients. And the more you can release your stuff, this insecurity, the imposter syndrome, the need to be like high status amongst your peers, the more you can get rid of all that crap, the more you can start to focus on being a better leader and achieving the goal, achieving the mission for the good of your people. Also, another really great realization was that, and I experienced this myself. It's very, very difficult to do, but making the right decision rather than the popular decision. And again, this comes from being very secure in yourself, having done all of the work, as a man, and therefore you can make these clear decisions based on the right thing, or I use my intuition quite often, rather than the shoulds because you're worried about what people may think, etc. So those are some really, really big lessons that I carry forward and I reflect on pretty much daily.
So I can vouch, I 100% agree with that. For the last 10 years I've been on this personal and spiritual development journey, and it's almost become an obsession. Well, what I've noticed is how calm I am, how much I trust my intuition. I remember being in a relationship, one of my first relationships, and we were going to buy a house together. But I knew it deep down, I knew it was wrong, but I carried on with it anyway. And that was the beginning, that was before I started on this development journey. And deep down, I knew it was wrong. And it was kind of this idea that I'm going to carry on because I feel anxious if I don't. And there's a sense of within that, there's this idea that luckily the relationship ended and I learned the lesson. But from ever since then, I've focused on really allowing myself to trust my intuition on a deep, deep level, even if it's unpopular. But then again, there's sorts of situations where you almost get into this into your mind, and your mind tends to lead rather than your heart. So how can people shift from the mind into their heart to make decisions?
Okay, yeah, it's a really good question. So, firstly, it's understanding how it all works. So, within the system, the inner mastery method that I teach, we focus, this comes from ancient wisdom in ancient traditional yoga. So, there are 5 causes of human suffering. The first one is ignorance. So, if you don't understand how your mind works and your body works, then you're in a losing battle. So, the only way to do that is to really understand this, do the work. Gain the wisdom, and then you can elevate, and you're effectively seeing a new horizon. So, how to put that into practical terms? So, by doing a daily practice of getting away from or going beyond your 5 senses. So, what I do every day, I go too much into my routine. I do my yoga pranayama, so effectively breath work, but it's a deeper sense of breath work because we're using energy manipulation. So you're doing our pranayama, doing our meditation, and what you can do, you can start to quieten the mind. This is the purpose of yoga and many other techniques. You quieten the fluctuations of the mind, and once you quieten the fluctuations of the mind, then you have this incredible realization. You can access this, you can make this inner connection. You can start to get these real authentic ideas and wisdom coming through, despite all of the fluctuations of the mind, all of these little voices telling you you should do this, you shouldn't do that. So it's creating this these conditions for yourself by your daily practice, whatever you do. I use my method to create this peace, this inner peace that you can protect, and that's where you get your wisdom from. And what happens in this respect is, or when you apply this, is you no longer go seeking for advice or asking questions. You've got everything you need inside. So you stop looking externally for the answers. You can actually access these answers from inside you. This is what I help my clients with, and it's groundbreaking when you get this realization. But it all starts with shining a light on this stuff. So getting rid of this ignorance of how things work.
Nice. I can understand. I like to go outside barefoot first thing in the morning and literally allow myself to ground, because the world's just full of, at the moment on the news and what's going on around the world, there's so much information coming in and our minds are racing around. It's very hard to kind of figure out the right information with what's everything that's going on. And it's this idea that once you start to kind of connect into that, into the quietness, into the wisdom, it almost becomes your next step, and then the next step, and the next step, and the next step. With regards to successful men, quite often there's a sense that, or people, should I say, men and women, there's this idea that a lot of them look for fulfillment outside themselves, whether that's cars, houses, money. Why do they feel so unfulfilled inside there quite often?
So yeah, again, brilliant one. I talk about this on my retreats a lot. We start off with a big question. What would success look like if we were to put a mission statement on life? And it's comes down to fulfillment, meaningful connections, and a positive contribution or meaningful contribution to the world. So it's trying to measure what your fulfillment is, or create the gauge on what your fulfillment is. And when you really strip it down, when you really break down these things with an individual, you work out that actually it's about what really fills you up, what fills you with joy. I mean, I'm very lucky in the place I've landed now, where I don't feel like I work anymore. I feel like I'm just fulfilling my purpose. And when you get to that, what you'll find is the universe delivers everything you need to get there. So my mantra is need less and give more. So, flashy cars. Well, if you need a flashy car, then that's absolutely fine, But it's when we start to strive for excess, the sooner we get to fulfilling our needs, the sooner we can get to giving more or serving more of our purpose. And the more we can tread lightly on this world, the sooner we can get to a point where we're having something to give back. So working out what fulfills you, like what lights you up, everyone knows what I'm talking about. When you get to that point, you've delivered a good hard day's work, or you've helped someone, that really lights you up. So it's, again, this comes back to the really diving into this and reflecting on what your needs are, and then what your desires are, and then scaling them back if there's any excess in there.
I think, but one thing that I've come to realize is that when it comes to purpose, direction, whatever you want to call it, quite often self-doubt, overwhelm, procrastination, feeling lost kicks in. What can people do, or what's the first step that people can do in order to really start to step into this purpose, or step into their direction that they're meant to go in?
So I think if this self-doubt and the fear cycle, which is common, and again, it's a thing that happens to all humans. So the way I personally break this cycle is, I work from home often, dealing with clients online, unless I'm running retreats and workshops. So sometimes I can get into this stuck cycle of not moving forward, going round and round and round. So the first thing to do is to break that cycle. So taking yourself off the X, or off the mark. Okay, so out of the environment, whether it be a retreat, whether it be just a walk or getting outside, and then you can start to reflect. And ultimately, when we doubt ourselves, I teach within my method, I've got something called the Thrival principles. And one of these principles is trust in yourself. This is something that we're always working at. We'll never get 10 out of 10. So we're always working on this element. And the best way to do this is to start to challenge yourself. So seeking discomfort every day. So I use cold water for this. I've been doing cold water training every day, haven't missed a day for over 4 years now. And so that's one very, very easy medium to access this level of discomfort. And the more you do that, you build this incredible sense of confidence and self-trust. And this fear of discomfort starts to melt away. And again, this, through cross-adaptation, this transfers into our life. Not only cold water training, but if you have a fear of public speaking, the thing that you really think you should do but you don't want to do, nudge your edges, just go for it and see what happens, because we start to become more confident, especially as men, as we're trying to find our position in this dynamic world, which is crazy now. But we can still do that by nudging our edges, and this will massively help us adapt to every other aspect of our life.
You know what? Cold showers have come up twice now. it's obviously, so I used to do cold showers quite a bit and used to do cold baths. I used to found submerge myself in a cold bath quite liberating because yes, the first 10 seconds you're like, oh, but then I find myself dropping into my body a lot when I'm in the cold bath. But it's come up twice, so I reckon I need to restart it definitely. So it's from my own perspective, I've been in business since 2018, but I've kind of it's been my business has been stagnant probably for the last since then. So I've never really progressed. And it's more I find myself usually when I don't know what I need to do. So if I don't have a clear enough plan, a clear enough um, way forward, I either get bored because I'm trying to figure out what to do, or I find myself getting overwhelmed or procrastinating. So I might go and watch a film, I might go and do something else like washing or general chores in the house. And so that's obviously it's been a reoccurring pattern. But then I find that once you identify the pattern, and you are able then to look a little bit deeper using self-development, personal growth, to look a bit deeper into it and why it's happening. Quite often underneath, I find it's just like a scared little part of ourselves, like a scared little boy.
Yeah, I think so. Coming from the military, and some of the areas in the military I worked in were some of the most elite teams. One thing I do miss from leaving the military is not having this team around me, people to challenge me, and within the organisations I worked in, we never patted each other on the back. Because we're always striving to be better and to perform higher. So that's one thing I really really miss. I've got loved ones around me who are very kind. My partner, she's absolutely amazing, and she challenges me, helps me, but not to that level. So I think it's really important, and specifically as men, as we're talking about on this podcast, I think men need really strong peers and coaches and mentors to really lift them. So I think you can do your own planning, but if no one's holding you to account, you can slip into that cycle. So I call this within the method that I teach, and the method my teacher passed down to me. We've got an element called, or a principle called, inspiring company. So surround yourself with inspiring company. So those who are where you want to get to, as opposed to someone who isn't where you want to get to, someone who's done the work, and they've walked your path, and they can sort of pull you forward, so they're inspiring you onwards. And it's identifying people of those around you. That can be a coach, it can be a friend, it can be a colleague, someone who will hold you to account on your things. So make your plan, which is the first step, but then you need this accountability. So there's only so much we can do by ourselves, but if you're working on your own, like I guess like you and I, it's really important to have these people who you can check in with, and of course you can do the same for them. So that's a great tip, and something that I've been really sort of really hard over on for the last sort of few years.
Yeah, it's talked about a lot by actually a lot of successful people, having the right people around you. And in fact, I was at the Professional Speaker Association the other day, and they were talking, the guy who was speaking, he was talking about not necessarily having also a team to push you forward with regards to business and work or purpose, but also having a well-being team around you, somebody who you can chat to if you need. But it had it in levels. So it was 8, 9, and 10. So people who were always there, who you could literally call upon to support you. Because quite often you can have friends, but you might not interact with your friends very often. But it's the really, really good friends, the ones who are going to challenge you and not say, "Oh, you're good, you're fine, you'll do it." You need somebody to challenge you. And I found that with coaches as well. I found certain business coaches over the years that I've had. I found that they give you ideas and stuff, but they don't hold you accountable. So you need somebody who's going to hold you accountable and ask the hard questions. Why didn't you get it done? And even probably going a little bit deeper. what's actually stopping you, which parts of you are stopping you from progressing.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you touched on another point with regards to that inspiring company I talked about. It's like you said, having that the individuals, the friends, or the coaches, people are going to be quite hard on you to really nudge your edges. But sometimes you want a softer response, and again, it's trying to have that. Also, I've effectively got a diagram. So it's me in the middle, and one of the things I visualized was, okay. So if I have a problem with if I have a problem with business, who could I go to? So I've got my business person, I've got my spiritual person, I've got my digital course person, I've got my partner for for love and compassion. So having these go-to people, but you have to be able to give them value as well. So making sure that there's this energy exchange. So I think that's really really important. Knowing who to ask when you have that specific question pop up.
Mm. What I'm finding at the moment, what I'm finding at the moment is AI. So obviously AI is never going to replace coaches, but there's a program I'm doing at the moment, and there's different AI bots being made for different purposes. And obviously AI uses the whole of the internet to collaborate information together. So if you perhaps can't afford a coach, I find that having AI actually almost gives you a helping hand with regards to a coach.
Yeah, I talk about this quite a lot actually in some of my industry with my sort of peers. Yes, absolutely, a really incredible tool, and I think it's I use different tools for different things within my business. The one thing I do that does pop up. I've been running retreats now for over 4 years. I've trained about 400 servicemen and women in recovery. And the thing that AI can't replace is this human connection, this sense of this tribal feel. And I think this is really important with men as well. Men coming together and be able to speak openly and talk through some of this stuff. With this struggle that's going on in the world. I'm not going to talk about politics with sort of like with what this toxic masculinity and where men sort of confine themselves in this sort of like this era, if you like. I think it's really important that we come together often as human beings, and I think when we go forward, I think when you look at business, I think businesses that are going to be successful going forward are the ones that are going to bring connection and community.
Yeah, I can agree with that. As I mentioned before we started, I do a lot of dance, and so you have the dance community, and you see the same faces, and you are able to literally, even though during this dance event there's no speaking, you're there in your body, in your energy around these people, and you're able to interact. And it's that sense of dancing and moving around. And one thing I've been challenging myself to do more of is to interact more with people. So dance with other people. So one thing I'm great at is dancing on my own in my own space. But I'm pushing myself by doing, I think it's dance improvisation, where literally you are with a partner, and obviously there's no speaking. You are moving with your partner to music, not in any set routine, but how your body or how the connection between you wants to move. And it's a sense of, I remember a couple of weeks ago, we were doing a few of these different moves you can do while you're dancing, and I was able to start to incorporate some of these dance moves, some of these movements into the actual body movement. So there's one where literally one person come up onto your hips and they almost spin them around 180 degrees. And I was able to incorporate into the dance. And it's when it happens in that moment, it feels good. So there was no prep into oh yeah, I'm going to do this dance move. I'm going to incorporate it. But that again, that comes down to human connection. and being able to connect to that person on a deep, deep level.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I I think the great thing about humans is, and aside from AI, is you can actually get really triggered by other people. I mean, we see this in relationships all of the time. I was married for 17 years to an amazing woman. She's phenomenal. Had two amazing children, and she was at home looking after them while I was, at work. I came home quite often, but there's a period in my career where I was away quite a lot in not very safe places, so she's very worried about me. When I eventually retired from the military, when I was 40, our marriage just broke down, and it's just one of those things. We both accepted it, and we both amicably divorced. Luckily, I'm very grateful for that. So amazing woman, amazing mother, and after that, I thought, well, here we go. I can meet people. It's very new to me, and yeah, and I had various friends and a few relationships, and a few of them were very very triggering to me, and yeah, it was I was trying to work out what happened, and when I reflect, I do a lot of reflection, I do a lot of journaling. That's how I sort of I set my compass really for going forward. What I found was there was these patterns that had formed, and every interaction, whether it be just a conversation online with someone I ever actually met, there was a lesson from each of those interactions. So, which helped me to develop myself, to grow, to let go, and to refine myself for when I meet the one which I've met now, and I've got all of this. I've got rid of all the crap basically, and I've learned a lot about myself. So I do feel that there's a massive requirement or need to have as many human interactions as possible in order to grow. And we learn a lot about ourselves from how we react to other people, because all of these, we can have lots of disagreements, not see eye to eye. So it's how we conduct ourselves in those situations, around how we react or respond to others. So yeah, I don't think that's going to be going away or being replaced by AI anytime soon.
A perfect example for myself is at this moment in time, certain people in the politics arena around the world, I can feel myself getting triggered by it all. But one thing I've come to realize the other day was that there's a lot of hatred for some of these people. So it's almost like, okay, there's this hatred that I hate and I'm projecting it out. How can I bring that back to myself in order to start to process what I hate about myself? Because I feel what we project out is quite often what we feel about ourselves. So if we have this hatred for somebody, then we need to turn that around and look at which parts of ourselves do we actually hate, and how can we start to bring this part that we hate and accept it for what it is and start to love that part of ourselves.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I resonate with what you're saying with everything that's going on. The other thing is that we react to what we're exposed to, so the information we have. And I have several friends on social media, and they're starting to share some of the things that are going on at the moment. I've got my own personal views, but that's based on my experience and the information I'm provided. And I find myself trying to private message them and say, well, have you considered this? But then it all comes down to we react or respond to what we've been delivered in front of us. And generally human beings are always doing their best. They're trying to have good intentions. So firstly I try to not get involved in these kinds of politics. But yeah, like you say, how we react, it's a mirror on what's going on with us. And again, with the benefit of doing reflection, doing breath work, meditation, and then reflection, we can start to notice these things about us, and then we can start to do something about it, and we can fine tune our instrument in order to play better in the orchestra of life. So yeah, I think it's I welcome some of these triggering events or these experiences, because it helps me to really understand more about myself.
Yeah, definitely. And I think as well, once you start to work through these triggers, you can start to love those parts. And it also then means that you're then projecting out love. So at this moment in time, there's so much going on with anger and hatred and all that kind of stuff. And the world's never been as divided as it is now. But thinking about it the other day, I don't want to add to this divide. Yes, there's lessons to be learned, and there's part to me that I need to accept about myself. But overall, I want to be sending out love. I don't want to be the part that sends out hatred. I want to be the person that sends out love. And then the more of us that we can help to and affect in that way, the more it's going to spread. And then that's the way I think the world's going to change.
Yeah, absolutely. You hit the nail on the head there. One of my thrival principles at the bottom is cultivate love daily as opposed to fear. And in yoga, there's a one of the yamas, which is for the listeners, it's the eight limbs of yoga. The first one is yama, which is and the first one of that is ahimsa. It's a principle of non-violence. So this is non-violence in our thoughts, our words, and our actions. So again, so if you see something that is directly opposed to your beliefs, then it's trying to, a superior man would be able to acknowledge that and seek to understand that perspective and understand this person has been presented with information and therefore they've drawn that conclusion. That's why they feel that way. So generally they've got good intentions, but they're passionate. It just happens to be opposed to the view that you've deduced from the information you've been given. So once you can become a master of the inner world, you can start to dissolve this feeling of aggression or violent thought or violent word towards that person. You can sort of soften and change it. It's a little bit like a samurai. I always use that analogy. One of the organisations I operated in, we had to be able to control our nervous system. So if something triggered us, so one of our friends got shot or someone shooting at us, if you respond violently or get triggered by that, then you'll start to make mistakes. You have to look after your nervous system, bring yourself back down to that parasympathetic. So it's that constant battle. If you see something that's not right, rather than triggered, a superior man can harness that fear and turn it into something more positive. And like you say, cultivate that sense of love or kindness and compassion, which is all in the same bucket. So yeah.
What kind of techniques can people use to calm down their parasympathetic nervous system?
So yeah, so I always say to people in my trainings and my courses, when you're in that position, the last thing you're thinking about is, oh, I need to do my parasympathetic nervous or my vagus nerve breathing. That's the last thing you do. So if you can catch yourself and you can be conscious of it, so breathing in the belly, breathing in through the nose, there's lots and lots of different strategies, different breathing techniques. So whatever works for you. What one I use is breathing in for 6 seconds and then breathing out for 6 seconds through the nose, deep into the belly, and doing that for several minutes. However, because we can't catch ourselves, the best way we can combat this is to take our sympathetic nervous system to the gym. So taking our stress response to the gym. So we can practice very strong dynamic breathing in safety. So we can also get emotional release from this. But what happens is we can start to build stress resilience. Also, cold water training. So anything that's uncomfortable to us, we do that stimulates our sympathetic nervous system. So when we are in these situations, we get triggers, road rage or in the office or whatever it may be, we're more chilled. And you'll get to the point in your life where it's like the Matrix, just dodging bullets. Nothing really bothers you, and people look at you like, are you real? Why are you so chilled out all of the time? And it's because you see things on a different level, and that's where this inner mastery really comes in.
Going back to the cold showers, I think, yeah, definitely. If you go underneath a cold shower, your automatic reaction for your body is. But if you can literally just stop yourself and then just go, and it will be uncomfortable and it will be hard, especially initially. But yeah, you can, as you say, you can just start off with 10 seconds or 20 seconds and then build it up. But if you decide to go for the whole challenge of a whole minute and just roll with it, it's almost, like you said, facing that discomfort.
Absolutely. I think that there's lots of ways to approach cold water. I mean, my career in the military, I spent a lot of time in the water, in the Arctic, in all places around the world, and yeah, and I but even though I spent all that time in the water, I never really understood or really never really mastered this ability, this cold water training, if you like. I used to sort of jump in quite loose and not really knowing what I was doing. So the way I do it now and the way I teach in my courses is it's very slow, and you're trying to get in and feel everything. And through cold water shock is when you jump into cold water and your body has this automatic reaction to take a breath. That's what's going to happen with your nervous system when you get into the cold water. So the best thing to do is to start off in control of your breathing. So focus in, nice deep breaths in through the nose, out through the mouth, and use that as a guide rail into the cold. And then when you're in the cold, stay with the breath. And then when you get to the end of each exhale, just try and soften, try and open a little bit more, a little bit more. And before you know it, you melt away. You go through these 3 phases: resistance, where you don't really want to get in the cold; existence, where you're in the cold water but you're contracted; and then emergence, where you completely open, surrender, let it into the body. And then that puts your nervous system to sleep. You slip into the parasympathetic, and you can just stay. And that's what you described earlier when you're in there for a minute. One of in my career, I had a near drowning experience where I was basically held down by some quite heavy equipment, and I thought I was going to die. But initially, I was trying to try to sort myself out, save myself. My mask had come off. I was trying to put my mask back on, my dive mask, and then something happened. My sympathetic nervous system kicked in, and I went fight or flight. And before I knew it, I was trying to swim and pull this big heavy equipment up to the surface. Now, I had no control of my nervous system at this point. On reflection, when I thought about it later on, if I'd have just carried out a couple of procedures, I could have released myself and I've been fine. But this didn't happen. So after that, I had night terrors for about 2 years. But after that, I had the opportunity to do a free diving course with an amazing man who I later started working with many years later in my last company, and basically he taught me to free dive, and this is kind of the beginning to my yoga and breathwork journey. I realised how incredible the breath is at controlling how we react, and that was the start really. And since then, after that course, I could hold my breath for 5 minutes, and just by going through those processes, it was amazing how you can sort of hack into the body, and that was kind of the start of my yoga journey. So I that's the thing I do most of around the water. I think the water is incredible for healing, but it's an incredible way to test our discomfort or practice our discomfort training.
Yeah, when I did a bit of cold water swimming probably about a couple of years ago, and I would wear gloves and boots, but I would go in my normal shorts in the January's winter, and it was freezing. It was freezing, and I could feel the pain going through my body literally because it was that cold. But eventually, probably within 2-3 minutes, that pain disappeared. And that's a quite astounding thing, is that you can have all this pain, but then that pain is just temporary. And then suddenly it's just gone and disappeared. And it's like you can just carry on for ages.
Yeah, and that's also the risk with the once the alarm signals have gone, you've got to rely on your discipline. So there's a training zone, and then after the training zone, that's the sort of the death zone, I call it. So it's been really aware of it. But yeah, you're totally right. It's amazing. We have this when we enter the water, we have this thing called the mammalian reflex, which basically got the periphery, all our circulatory system on the peripheral, our arms and legs, for example, they shut down, bringing all the blood to the core. And there's quite a few things that happen to the body. So again, it's once you start to become aware of this, you can use this and sort of like start to nudge your training into the next level. But yeah, you can't beat it. That's my biggest piece of advice. Cold water train every day. It's fantastic.
Well, it looks like I'm starting now.
Yeah, yeah, life changing.
um, so the word authenticity is thrown around like there's no tomorrow. It's become a new buzzword. What is authenticity, and how can men shift, or how can people shift into more confidence and authenticity?
Okay, so yeah, this is what one of my sort of fundamental principles. And going back into my career, what I noticed was there was lots of men, generally like new, like more recent sort of generations, who would always gravitate towards the what I call the wolf pack, the sort of popular crowd, and that's how they go through life. I don't know, I've always found myself like I consider myself an outsider, so I'd disagree with the group, and sometimes I'd sort of go with the group, but sometimes I'd really disagree with the group, and then you feel a little bit what's the word I'm looking for? You like an outsider, but that decision has always like landed me in the right place and helped me succeed. So I've really embraced my authenticity from a an early age in my both my careers in my corporate world and the military world. So for me, authenticity is firstly, it leads to success in every aspect of your life, being unapologetically authentic. It's the most terrifying thing ever as well. So speaking, unfiltered, doing like if you do business online, like Facebook Lives, and LinkedIn Lives, things like that, because there's no rehearsal. What comes out of your mouth is you. And however, there was a study done recently, I think it was in Europe, and they measured frequencies come out of the body. I always thought like love and gratitude are the most powerful frequency that humans can emit, but it's not. Authenticity has been measured to be the most powerful frequency. So when we look around us and we look on social media, whether it be people we really dislike on social media or people we really resonate with, for some reason these people show up on our feed, and these people are really successful and really popular because they're unapologetically authentic, and authenticity attracts people. So depending on what if you want to attract people, ultimately we want to attract the right people. If we walk through our life wearing a mask, we're going to attract the wrong people, because those people are going to be attracted to the bullshit self, so this mask. If we remove the mask and we shine our light, we are unapologetically authentic, we're going to start to attract the right people into our lives, and therefore get going with our path and our purpose. So I think authenticity comes from again the things I talked about, reducing those fluctuations of the mind. So doing your breath work, doing your meditation, doing your reflection, figuring out what you want to let go, surround yourself by inspiring company, and you can really have a feel of who you are, what fills you up, what brings joy. And then when you start to live that life, people will start to recognize that in you, and it becomes contagious. So I think it's one of the most powerful principles that any man can emit and can live. And again, it leads to, in my experience, it leads to success in every aspect of your life.
Yeah, it's we've got a mutual friend, Shakti Sundara, and in the episode we're talking about relationships. We talked about how if you bring back your energy into your body, as I call it, your frame, and you do what you need to do, so following your purpose, dancing like there's nobody watching, going out and doing things that you enjoy, you will naturally, as I said, you will naturally attract the right people to you. But also, there's an attraction quality within authenticity.
Yeah.
And I find it's as you said, it's very hard sometimes to be authentic because we're programmed to want to fit in with everybody. But once you start to be you, and yes, you might annoy a few people, you start to live. You start to live within yourself. There's a sense that when you start to be your authentic self, you get more guidance come through. You'll find that more people who are meant to be in your life will gravitate towards you. There'll be more opportunities that are meant for you that will come into your life as well. And so I feel like authenticity is a big thing. So how can people start to become more authentic, and how can they stop, or not stop, how can they change from wanting everybody to like them to just be themselves?
Yeah, it's a really good point. So again, bring it back to the leadership. Again, all of my when I look back and preparing for this discussion, I was reflecting on some of the most incredible leaders I've ever had, and the top of the list is authenticity, the massive authenticity, which sometimes makes them unpopular, but they've led well and they've succeeded. And ultimately, after being unpopular, the individuals who didn't like their decisions realized that yeah, they made the best decisions for the team. So so again, comes back to this: why aren't we authentic? Because we fear a few things for being ourselves. Coming back to one of my original points on the 5 causes of all human suffering. So anything we suffer as a human can be put into these 5 buckets. The first one is ignorance of our existence, how things works. The next one is egoism, so this idea of ourself or how we should be performing. So, there's a few individuals I've met in the corporate world who really had lots of insecurities, and they were trying to figure out how they fit in the organisation, as the world, as a man, for example, and this tarnished their ability to be authentic. When actually, if you show a little bit of vulnerability or show your team in a leadership context that you don't have all the answers, but that's what you guys are for. You guys are all the experts. It's my job to get the best out of you and to lead you and help you and solve your problems as your leader. If you can open up and have the strength and the courage to do that and be authentic, this will be like incredibly attractive to all of your people. But in order to do that, it's understanding that the ego exists, and actually everything changes, your experiences change you all the time, so nothing's permanent. So constantly releasing this fixed idea of yourself. The next cause of human suffering is attachment. So this attachment to expectations of others, attachment to other people liking us, so doing things to be liked. If we lose this, if we act authentically, knowing that we're just doing the right thing, we're not expecting anything back, we lose this attachment. The next one is aversion. So aversion to displeasure. So if we don't like something's a little bit icky, we don't like to public speak, we don't like to tell someone that they're not performing well, we don't like to upset people. So if we lose these aversions, and then finally it's fear of something coming to an end. So fear of death, fear of mortality, or fear of a career. So these 5 causes of human suffering, if we can use our tools, our breathwork, our meditation, our cold water training, all of these tools to loosen up all of these problems with the mind, we suddenly get rid of all the obstacles, and then we just live through our authenticity. There's no questions. Obviously, we're human beings, we're constantly battling with this, but we're no longer having these massive blockers to prevent us saying that thing that we feel like we should say or we want to say, but we don't think we should because we will become unpopular, or intervening, or doing the right thing. So once we become a master of it inner world, using these tools, we can just release. We can just open to the world. So yeah, really, really important. but it starts with you. You can't be an effective leader if you can't lead yourself.
Hmm. You said attachment. I was like, yeah, no. But so I'll give you an example. At the moment, I've got this car, 10 years old, and I am kind of attached to the car. Yeah, I know it needs to go because it's become problem after problem after problem. So I was thinking, when you were saying about different techniques, you could also use, as we've mentioned, I think quite a few times, journaling, but almost going deeper inside ourselves and asking ourselves, what is it that's really holding us back to do with this attachment? So for me, with the car, I think it's the fact that I would fear not getting a car as good as that, or maybe the other car might not work, or the other car might be too expensive to run. And so there's almost going into these ideas, these questions that we might have, all these different parts holding us into this attachment, and going a bit deeper into that, and then a little bit deeper into that. And eventually you will come to this core idea of what the attachment's all about. And then it's when you can change, you can start to turn it around. And it could be down, I think it could be down to beliefs. So then you can turn the belief around. It could be down to your inner child not feeling safe. So then you can bring a little bit of safety in and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think sometimes, so a really good point about make we do have to make decisions all the time. So there's a couple of things. Firstly, are you in the best place, the best state to make that decision? A lot of people aren't necessarily. They're making a decision from a stress response. So firstly, it's go away and sort out your state, and then go back to that decision. And once you know that you're in a really good place, what I'm talking about, do your breath work, do a meditation, then sit down with your journal and then go through the problem or go through the decision you need to make. You can't really get from, or do your cold water training, you can't really get to a better state to make that decision from. After that, when you do make that decision, it's just owning that decision and then walking away from it. Because the last thing we want is guilt and doubt and all those different things. So it's just, again, come back from as we're talking to men, so being that superior awakened man where you make that decision and you own it and then just walk forward and just don't look back.
Like that. So with regards to people following their purpose, I always find clarity is the key, because if you have a bit of if you have clarity, you have this idea of the steps that you need to take. So, what daily habits or exercises can people start to do to start to get clarity in what they need to do?
So firstly, it's we need to build a an ongoing practice. Within yoga, it's called sadhana. Sadhana is a daily practice, something we do every day to access spiritual enlightenment or enlightenment or just clarity, depending on what you believe in. So uh, for me personally, so everyone's different. I'm a single dad. I have my children 50% of the time, so I've got to deal with. I'm a householder, so I haven't got the luxury to spend 10 hours at the gym. So I get up early, get up before my children. I spend a few minutes just to reflect. I listen when I first wake up. I listen. What have I been dreaming of? What comes to me straight away? And if anything comes to me, I'll write it down. If it doesn't, then I take it through to my practice. I come downstairs and I do my breath work. Okay, so it's yoga pranayama. I've got my specific method. I go through that, and then I go into a meditation. Sometimes I feel it in me to do 40 minutes. Sometimes it's 20 minutes, and I do this meditation. I get to that point, and this is where I have my most clarity. I pull out my journal and I write down. Sometimes it's a sentence, sometimes it might be a word, sometimes it's 2 or 3 pages. I then go and do I get my wake my children up. I have my cold shower. I've got another practice I do, and then later on in the day, if I feel into it, I teach yoga, breathwork, meditation, and postures, so I get lots of movement in anyway. But I also, before I go to bed, I make sure that I've got a little bit of time before I go to sleep, and I journal. And the more you do this, you start to go deeper. So it's keeping things simple, whatever works for you. in order to access that clarity. This might be just going for a walk, but making sure that you aren't. Ultimately, what you're trying to do is quieten the mind. So whatever you can do to quieten the mind. For me, yoga is the best thing I've ever found, and I really get to that point where I can make better decisions. One of the things I did with my previous company, we do, which I still do now on a Monday. We do a lunchtime breathe, so you can start your day, and you hit your emails and you get all your bits and pieces, and you start hitting your to-do list. But you get to the lunchtime and you've got so much to do. You're trying to work out, what do I use the rest of the afternoon for? So it's really important to, again, access that clarity so you can make better decisions. So I do like a 20-minute dynamic breathwork practice on a Monday at 12, which is brilliant, and all my people, it just completely transforms their day and their week. And the more often you do that, that's your go-to. That becomes a habit. So rather than think, I'm going to get another coffee, which actually speeds life up, you can actually go and slow things down and access that clarity for the same amount of time, and then you can make better decisions in your life, your career, your family life, etc.
Thank you very much, Rob. Can you just tell us, lastly, what is it that you do? What can you offer people, and how can people get in contact?
Okay, so what I offer, so I've created a business called Thrival Instinct, and this is about finding your spark and your true purpose in order to live an optimal human experience. So life is about experience, so we want to experience it fully. Okay, so that's fine tuning our instrument to really, like I say, perform well in the orchestra of life. So I offer an online platform. It's an online portal. I deliver breath training, postures, coaching, meditation, and on-demand resources. I also offer retreats. So this is mixed retreats, inner mastery retreat. I do an awakened man retreat specifically for men, and also a couples retreat for reconnection. I do that with my partner. I also do one-to-one coaching, and I have a program called Inner Mastery Mentorship, which is basically trying to unlock some of this stuff and actually helping you to empower you with the tools, so you no longer need me. You can actually do this all by yourself. So my website is www.thrivalinstinct.co.uk. You can reach out to me from there, and and find my social media, and then let me know if you want to chat more, and I'll be really pleased to help.
Cheers. Thank you very much, Rob.
Thank you. Cheers.